going in a circle or anything?
We are live, everybody. Good morning. It is Wednesday, September 22nd. I can't quite hear the music, but that's okay.
Can't hear the music.
Good morning, everybody. We are live. Even Facebook has told me we're live. But may we live in interesting times. It is a Coffee Pan Dulce. And hey, Christian, how are you doing in Texas? Oh no. Oh no, the gremlins are getting us.
Looks like he's not doing too well in Texas.
We are still alive as far as I can tell. The little icon, but we're not recording anymore. But that's okay. I guess I don't know if I'm supposed to record. I'm not sure which.
Well, I'm sure Christian will be back on momentarily.
Yeah, we'll keep talking. You know, he may want to start over, but right now we're still broadcasting, and having just a good time. How are you, Dr. B?
Doing fine.
Yes,
I'm doing fine as long as my sore throat this morning is a cold and not COVID, but that remains to be seen.
Sorry about that, y'all.
No, that's okay. It's not recording anymore either, just so you know. Hey, Christian.
All right. Yep,
it's not recording. Okay, no worries. But we're still live, so I'm not going to have us have dead air. So
yeah.
Good morning, everybody. I'll keep talking, and we'll go around the room and talk about our imaginary buttons, and we'll start with Dr. B, our guest of honor.
Yeah, well, I don't have buttons on today, but my primary button is Medicare for All, which has gotten into a real confusing place now with this budget reconciliation process, and it's really kind of hard to keep your eye on what's going on. But the ultimate goal, of course, is single payer, universal health care, Medicare for all. And then my second button is Black Lives Matter, anti-racism. So those are my two big issues.
Well, I would definitely second both of those noble causes. I think eliminating white supremacy and lifting up communities of color, especially Black lives that have been historically targeted in our country over the last 400 years. We need restorative justice. We definitely need to take care of people. By the way, I am Jenny-Jaymes Gunn, one of your reoccurring co-hosts and problem maker. And I also second healthcare for all. I think after going through a pandemic for the last 18 months, we need single payer, dignified healthcare that is the right thing to do. It's the patriotic thing to do. It's an economic freedom issue too. It's about being able to change jobs and not worry about losing your healthcare. It's in every way, shape, and form. It is the best choice for our system, and pretty much all of our peers, all of the high wealth countries that we compete against on a world stage have single payer healthcare, and so if the other 39 high wealth nations are doing it, why aren't we? And why are we letting so many people fall through the cracks, have economic destruction, and actually in some cases choose to not get treatments and pass away due to not having coverage, which is a very cruel anti-life choice made by our powers to be. Christian?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Christian Cano, one of their co-hosts. I'm sorry I'm having some, well, you know how it is. And I think we've got Barbara, but she's, you know how it is. Good morning, everyone. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts, along with Mama Ruth, Jenny-Jaymes Gunn, Barbara Bacon, Stephen DeFiore. I am actually visiting family in Texas for a couple of weeks. So I am not in the Ritz-Carlton. I'm actually at I think everyone here has if you live in the Dallas area, it's so hot, you have to have a pool. And I'm sure the water evaporates, because it gets so hot. Jenny, well, Dr. B, you lived in South Texas, right? Or is that, yeah. So welcome. Today is September 22nd. And thank you, Jenny, for carrying it in the beginning. We are live on Facebook. Thank you for joining us, but also those who join us on Facebook Live later and on YouTube as well. Today's topic is COVID-19. We're going to compare 2020 to 2021. I think this should be a very interesting topic. And before we do that, let's go ahead and salute to Coffee and Pan Dulce. If you are drinking something this morning, good morning. I'm actually drinking whole milk. I'm sorry, Jenny. I was with family late last night. I forgot to stop and get some oat milk, and my cousin's very health conscious, so she has like all healthy, like really healthy food in the refrigerator. I'm like, where's the Snickers? What's going on? So, oh, and also traveling all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina, Manolo's Bakery is our producer's sponsor. It was protected in the ice box. And Manolo's Bakery, please visit your Black and brown small businesses during this global pandemic. And Manolo's Bakery is on Central Avenue. You know, this is the perfect time to start considering your tamale orders for Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that wonderful stuff. So, 3 topics. The 3 topics we're going to talk about real quickly, and then we'll get into our main topic is, I read an article, and I think you guys before the show corrected me. It said that we will be entering into a period where 1 in 500 Americans will have died of COVID. It should happen within the next couple of months. I don't know if you guys want to comment on that. I think it's the Washington Post. Also, there was an article in the Washington Post that shared that very soon the no deductibles for your insurance company will go away for COVID cases. So those who previously caught COVID and went to the hospital, they actually didn't have any deductibles and so forth. And insurance companies, I guess that grace period is ending. And if you go to the hospital, you may be now subject to deductibles and other expenses, so to speak. And then lastly, there is actually a restaurant in Rowlett, Texas, I believe. Is that right, Jenny?
Yeah.
That is, you'll get into that one, but apparently they had kicked out a family for wearing masks because their child had some immune compromised situation, and now there's some backlash going to that. So very, very quickly, if you want to comment on any of those 3 topics, any of you.
Yeah, I posted that on my Facebook yesterday, and it actually made it into the Washington Post too. So I want to make this sports bar even more famous. Hang Time Sports Bar and Grill in Rowlett, Texas. So anybody that's watching the show, you're welcome to flame them up. When you come in the door, the hostess actually asks you to remove your mask, as per instructions of the owner. And so it is, he believes, I don't even know how to say this, but he believes that the wearing masks in his business is a security issue, and that he could come more getting robbed because people are wearing masks to protect their families. This family that they ejected was a young family with a baby that has a immunocompromised condition, and the doctor said no matter where you go publicly, we ask that you wear masks, even as parents, even though they're fully vaccinated and all that. And they actually confronted them after they'd already ordered and kicked them out, despite them telling them, hey, this is immunocompromised deal, and that the doctor actually asked. So the owner is Tom Blackmer, and he says he has the right to do this, and he's invested into a private business. I mean, I guess next thing you'll know, his employees won't want to wash their hands because the soap shaves off their skin or something, and they'll stop washing their hands too. And since they're a private business, they don't have to wash hands while they're serving food. Who knows? The second thing is, I guess the other 2 topics was, one, they did the flag memorial, the white flags in Washington, D.C. It is confirmed, 1 out of 500 Americans have died of COVID, and let that sink in. So, and we've also surpassed the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918 as far as the death count as well. So 2 very grim, gruesome milestones. And to add to that, 182,000 people have died since we've rolled out the vaccine. Only 1,400 of those victims were vaccinated. So we've had 180,000 unvaccinated people die. You can let that sink in too.
You want to comment on the deductibles?
And the deductibles, companies are wanting that money.
Well,
I think it's an economic thing. I think we've gotten to the point where it is every person for themselves in many ways. And a lot of people have given up on compassion.
I know I was building a case for Dr. B, what I think he's going to say, but let's, Dr. B, do you want to comment on any of those three?
It's hard to make a comment that's not really, negative and critical, because like so many people say, we're to a point where it's impossible not to be impatient with the unvaccinated. That there doesn't seem to be a religious justification. There's not a civil rights or personal freedom and individual responsibility. None of that. So it's just unfortunate, and I continue to try to be patient and understanding, because not all folks take these little ideological views. They're nervous about it. They're concerned about it. Someone I respect very much said that if she had a child under 10 right now, she would kind of be a little. She would probably do it, but she would have some anxiety about giving this child the vaccine. So there are folks that have these legitimate concerns, but I think those are probably in the minority. And most people who aren't vaccinated now, like healthcare workers who are causing hospitals to close their labor and delivery departments because they don't want to get vaccinated for I don't know what reason. It's just hard to be patient with that. So it does seem like for what you might say about them, mandates to wear a seatbelt and things like that are going to be about the only way to go.
Any comment? I'm throwing you a softball here. Any comment about the deductibles for the insurance company?
Well, it's follow the money.
I'm waiting for you to say the Medicare for all.
Well, that
we wouldn't have that problem.
At the beginning of the pandemic, several of us in the Medicare for All movement were optimistic that, holy moly, this would be the perfect occasion for Congress to very quickly, as part of one of these $1 trillion relief things, to say, for anybody who has COVID, it's basically Medicare for all. The features of Medicare for all, and that that would prove so successful and efficient that maybe the common sense would be to spread it to everyone. But I'm afraid that common sense is not in high demand in Washington. So we continue to plod along. Yeah, it's real frustrating.
Well, just me, and I forgot to tell you, my imaginary buttons is Trust Women, Medicare for All, Healthcare for All, Moms in Action, Gun Sense Legislation, and always in my heart, Joe Oldham, who was a guest of ours, a young man who died so early in his life. The deaths obviously is very concerning. I didn't realize it was that big of a number. The COVID hospital bills, I don't think a lot of people truly understand, especially the unvaccinated who are currently going to the hospital, the medical expense that you could incur in addition to having COVID. And I think that's going to be surprising. They're going to have sticker shock. And then the Texas Rowlett thing, when I saw that, Jenny, I was actually driving from, coming to here, and I was trying to read that as I was driving, and I was like, what? How? I hope the free market works the way it's supposed to. And they, I don't know, what do you think on that? I just.
Oh gosh, in Texas, they'll probably be swamped. I mean, there's a whole lot of people that agree with that, as we've seen. So it's probably not going to hurt them a bit.
Jen?
Well, they love their super spreader events in Texas. I mean, everything's bigger in Texas, but on average, 40% of the deaths come from 2 states, Florida and Texas, right now. They both average 200 to 300 deaths a day, and yet they don't represent 40% of the population. And so the disproportionate spread of Delta and the lack of vaccinations. And you can contrast it to California, which is virtually having no deaths, and 1 out of 8 Americans live in California. Shows that if you truly make an effort and get vaccinated as a society, that you can beat this. And there's many other countries that are literally having no deaths or an occasional death, but it's I've got a friend that lives in the island nation of Malta, and they actually had Pride this weekend, and it's but their country's 80% vaccinated. They're a top 10 country in the world on getting vaccinations, and yet we're the originator of 3 of the major vaccines, and we're not taking it. It shows so much about our wealth and our privilege, but also how, quite frankly, how dumb our country is. We are the hillbillies of the planet in so many different ways, between the polluting and destroying the environment, and just going, I choose death, I choose COVID over a common sense measure like a vaccine. And it's, as I call it, it's masses of people, but the M is silent, and it's kind of surreal.
I just got that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's basically the trash.
Sorry,
It's basically the trash
time.
taking itself out. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just kind of it's just kind of extraordinary. We've seen 5 or 6 radio conservative talk show hosts die since August 1st.
Yeah.
And you would think, when they're seeing a lot of their grand poobahs and cult leaders passing away, like in a matter of days, some of these guys got this, tested COVID positive, and was dead in 3 or 4 or 5, 6 days. And you're like,
it's like they've made up martyrs or something. Yeah. Well,
to what degree do you think that, speaking of Texas and Florida, that their governors, Abbott and DeSantis, to what degree do you think they do the math to kind of say, okay, we got this base we need to appeal to keep us all getting reelected, and the base is kind of crazy and irrational about all this, but at the same time, the measures that we're doing are killing off our base. So to what degree is the math an issue, or is it just that if they kill a few thousand of their base, they'll still be millions left?
Hold on, Jenny, because we don't have that much time. We got to switch to the topic. But before you answer that, Jenny, it's almost as if though Dr. B was a fly in our car on your birthday.
Yeah. Well,
Go ahead.
But I do think this is germane to our main topic, which is COVID 2020 versus COVID 2021. And we're sitting here right now on the other side of the vaccine. You know, the ability, we're 9 months into a vaccine rollout nationally. And you have this option available, and you're seeing decidedly different talking points from the Republican leadership and the Democratic leadership, just on the governor, on the state level, which I think this is really where we lost the fight to protect our society. And exactly what you're saying, Dr. B, is the problem, is that the states with Republican governors have horrifying rates of spread and death. And at some point, and I think some of them are starting to wake up to it. And I think it's mostly coming from the non-elected official sectors, like a lot of the pastors of some very conservative mega churches are saying, including the one in Texas that was very much instrumental in Trump's campaign, is saying, well, there's no biblical reason not to get the vaccine. There's no exemption. There's nothing in the New Testament. Like, we've always supported vaccines. In fact, many of the big mass vaccination rollouts in the 1950s and 60s, like the polio one, were distributed in churches. They would set up ad hoc vaccination clinics in churches, including conservative churches. And so the clergy's always been supportive of vaccinations, you know.
Hey, Jen, can you do me a favor? I think when I got knocked out in my technical difficulty, we knocked Barbara out, and you're host. Can you let Barbara back in? I don't know if you have the ability to do that. Okay.
It's not showing up on my end.
Okay. All right. Well, she's trying to get in. So Barbara Bacon is trying to join us back again. I knocked her out accidentally, and I keep hearing this beep, and I'm looking, but so we'll get her in eventually. So but before, let's go ahead and move to the topic today is COVID-19. We're going to compare 20 to 2021. In my cousin's guest bedroom, I turned the TV on this morning, and there was the show that runs, I guess, all day long, The Young Turks. I don't know if you guys have watched that. And the show that was on had Nina, the young lady who ran for Congress, Nina, she was on, and then another gentleman, and they were talking about COVID deaths, and they were actually comparing 2020 to 2021. And so I thought we would talk about that, because I don't know, we'll start with you, Dr. B. What is your sense on how we are from 2020 to 2021?
There. Well, and again, it's just a striking thing where now we still have this horrific rampaging pandemic, but it's a pandemic of those who largely haven't been vaccinated. And so you have those of us who have been vaccinated to a certain degree feeling comfortable and a little bit secure. And as Jenny pointed out, the deaths from those who have been vaccinated are a minuscule fraction of the overall deaths now. So we have this absurd, avoidable, unnecessary, continuously rampaging pandemics that's overwhelming hospitals. I mean, you all have seen the headlines that we now have rationing in America. Welcome to the COVID era. That we're rationing healthcare because hospitals in Idaho and maybe Florida and Texas and these other highly unvaccinated states are just literally getting overwhelmed. So all of this sympathy that we had for hospital workers last year is, here we go again. And it's just so unnecessary. And I don't know what more to say. I mean, like Jenny said, we have the solution in hand, in syringe. And people just refusing to take it. So this is going to go down as a real black era in American history.
And Dr. B, I've got I guess it's kind of a medical question. As a surgeon and a medical doctor, what is your opinion of and it's a very small group of healthcare workers that are refusing to get vaccinated and are missing these deadlines, like some of the Novant employees got released this week and suspended indefinitely until they comply. What is your thoughts on, one, why would somebody go in a medical career and not want to protect their patients? And two, if you had people working for you, hypothetically, that in your practice that refuse to get vaccinated, what would be your conversation, or what would be your procedure on talking to them about this?
Yeah, well, the ones that kind of interest me the most are this group of labor and delivery nurses in some hospital, I can't remember where, that enough of them declined it that they had to shut down their unit for a while. And I heard some of them interviewed, but you can only get really scratch the surface on these kind of TV interviews. And it was the usual thing about, well, it's my body, it's my right, and nobody can tell me what to do, and this personal freedom and all that. I would be very interested in having deeper conversations, because, as you say, these folks have a commitment to helping people if they join the healthcare industry. Yep. So how is it that one feeling kind of trumps the other to this degree that it really ultimately harms so many people who might need those medical services? If I had employees, I would, as long as I had the patience to do it, I would try to understand their reasoning and see if I could reason with them and see if they have any misinformation or misapprehensions that we might be able to allay with factual information. I had a conversation with an old high school classmate just a couple of weeks ago, and we're good friends. She's sweet as can be, but it's hands on hips, and said, I'm just not convinced. And she said, I almost did it twice, and then I backed off. So I came up with that old joke about, the guy in a flood that was on his roof, and the boat came by, and he said no, and then a helicopter, no, and then he died and went to heaven, and said, God, why didn't you save me? So I sent you a boat, I sent you a helicopter. So I tried to tell my friend, that she, because she had made the point about, the Lord will make the right decision. Well, the Lord works in mysterious ways, and maybe the Lord has sent 5 or 6 different vaccines to the world. So, But I don't know. I would try to be understanding, but if push came to shove and I still had employees and if I were still practicing medicine, I would basically kind of have to say, I'm sorry, you just kind of can't work for me unless you're vaccinated. I mean, I think it's just not really a legitimate reason not to do so.
And one of the most extraordinary things, and we've all seen this unfold, and we saw the Washington D.C. Memorial this week. And if it didn't give you chills to see that many white flags, knowing that these are our neighbors that represent their death, I mean, they're not coming back. The only three people that come back is MacArthur, Jesus Christ, and Buddha. And unless you've led an army or walked on water, you probably aren't coming back. So we had all these neighbors die, and 180,000 of them this year alone die for no reason. The majority of them would probably still be here if they'd taken the vaccine, and so it's shocking. I think the most shocking thing that caught me off guard is not the rank and file anti-vax person, because we all know a lot of this is politically motivated. I'm thinking of the people, especially people that have healthcare licenses, like registered nurses, for example. Those are the ones that shocked me, because they basically took an oath to serve, in a medical capacity. And I harken back to like the anti-LGBT bills that have been tried to pass, where, nurses and doctors can refuse care to LGBT people. And it's kind of in that same vein of, did you go into the practicing medicine for the right reasons, and it's kind of a bizarro situation we're in, where our political beliefs and radicalization overwhelms our good sense, to the point where the particular conservative Americans are wiping out their own kind.
That's a question. Hey, Jen, sorry to interrupt you, but I want to bring Barbara in, because it looks like I was able to kind of figure out the gremlins, so to speak. And I apologize. Thank you, Jenny, for covering for me. I don't know if anyone even noticed that. But now St. Bernie is the host somehow. And so he's controlling the show. So that's why you couldn't get in, Barbara. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no, we have a runaway show.
So, Barbara, introduce yourself and the imaginary button. And, we're talking about the difference between 2020 and 2021. I don't know if you want to add how you feel about that.
Well, I'm Barb Bacon. I'm a community advocate here in South Charlotte. And my buttons are, I do believe in healthcare for all. And I really, after watching the news all over the weekend, we need to stop this gun violence. This is going crazy. And I'm particularly worried now because Art's going to run in the Chicago Marathon, and we just got an alert that we're not allowed to go out after dark. So I'm like, and they're talking about maybe inviting the National Guard. I'm like, okay. So I don't know. My family is not going to come anywhere near it because carjackings and whatever. So I don't know what's going on, you guys. But the difference between 20.
Do you feel the difference between 20 and 2021?
I think 2021 is worse. We're going totally in the wrong direction. I don't even know that there is any direction. Even the Democratic Party's going crazy. So I guess I'm trying not to watch any news because I'm trying to do day to day and just not deal with it, because I don't know what the answer is. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this in my lifetime. And I just worry about my younger nieces and nephews and cousins. I'm afraid for them. So
I don't know. Yeah, Jenny, and I'm going to let you jump in real quickly because I'm sure you have a different point of view. But just like me, I feel a complete difference between 20 and 21. In 2020, because I was looking at my journal, there was no direction. It was just the nuts were coming from the presidency. And so it felt more like I felt hopeless, because if the top was nutty, I was like, how are we ever going to come out? I feel more in control of my own destiny now. I know I've got a vaccine. I know I can get tested. I know I wear a mask. So I feel more secure in that I have control of my destiny. Now, I do agree with you, Barbara. It feels like the unvaccinated people have made it so complicated, but I'm sorry, in a way, I don't feel sorry for them because I feel secure.
I
All
don't
can
either.
do is-
No,
yeah,
don't
so-
get me wrong.
Yeah,
I
okay,
do not feel sorry for them,
Yeah.
but
So Jay, I don't know if you want to add anything, 30 seconds or less, because I have a couple questions for Dr. B.
I think of history, and I often reflect about history. And I remember seeing the photos and the videos after we won World War II and the ticker tape parades and the liberation from war. And how cool would it have been on the 4th of July had we gotten 100% vaccinated, and how we could have said, it's time to move on. It's time that we beat COVID.
yeah.
We could have had that victory over the COVID invaders and return to some sort of normalcy, some sort of decorum. I believe all of our current problems and strife is related to the fact that we're divided on ideology of the absurd, and how we united in the 1930s and 40s to beat the Great Depression, to beat World War II and beat fascism all together, and how now we've allowed fascism in, quite frankly, bold idiocy, just pure idiocy, the most un-American thing we could ever do.
Sure.
Beat us. When we have we have two tools of prevention, masks and vaccines, that are proven to be effective, that have only killed 40 people out of 5 billion injections. 40 people have directly died of this. And it just is unfathomable that we'd let 4-year-olds die, and we would let grandparents die, and we let all these people die for absolutely no reason, when we could have had a celebration on the 4th of July and said, thank you to President Trump, thank you to President Biden for making this a priority. That all Americans could have celebrated this win.
I have been calling it the Trump vaccine.
Yeah,
because
I'm good with that.
Hey, if we need to change anything to the Trump vaccine to get his people vaccinated,
I'll call it the red dog vaccine. I'll call it whatever you want to call it. I'll call it the Jesus vaccine. I'll give it whatever nickname. If conservative Americans will roll up their sleeves and just take the ouchie, I'll call it whatever, the anti-socialist vaccine. The anti-commie, whatever they want to call it, I'll call it.
But you did mention something I don't think people are aware of. We touched this last week on last week's show very briefly. And actually, Dr. B, you were almost repeating the talking points from last week's show. Is religion dumbing down America? That was the name of our show last week, and now we've got 2,000 views on that show already. So Jenny is correct. There were some very prominent evangelical pastors, even the pastor of the Dallas Baptist Church, excuse me, in Dallas, Texas. Jeffries, I believe is his name.
Yeah.
He did a sermon saying there's no biblical reason to opt out of the vaccine. And so every major religious leader, every major church, every major organized church, they started to come out to say there's no exemption, there's no religious exemptions that we know of. The only ones that are doing it are the kooks. So I do think, and what I was going to say was, there was I think it was in North Carolina, I'm not exactly sure, there's a hospital that is allowing you to claim a religious exemption from getting the vaccine if you sign some type of agreement that you will take no vaccines, including Advil, Tylenol, or anything that is made the same way. And that is their way of really pinpointing the true religious exemptions and just those people who say that they still take other vaccines. And I thought that was, what do you think about that, Dr. B?
Well, you said vaccine, I think you meant medication.
Yes, medication, but there's something about the correlation between, I guess, how Tylenol is.
Right. Well, it's just the inconsistency of these arguments. I mean, I don't think these people did not let their children go to school because they didn't want to get them, mumps and chickenpox vaccines, things like that.
Right.
So suddenly, in this divisive era, where you have these kind of irrational approaches to things, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to kind of say about that. Other than,
well, one other thing, and Jenny, I don't know, we didn't talk about this. Jenny and I did a lot of. I had spent a wonderful day with Jenny on her birthday, by the way. Happy birthday, Jenny! And we spent a lot of time on Friday talking about life issues, and we solved the world's problems in our car. And so I thought maybe you were listening to that conversation, Dr. B. One of the things that I find very interesting is the same individuals that are trying to use religious exemption. They're not doing all the religious exemptions. They're wearing leather. They're using, I mean, at least I give credit for people who like the Amish who don't drive cars because, I mean, they're following exactly, what they believe instead of picking and choosing. I was in Beverly Hills, California at a hotel. And on Fridays, the Jewish community celebrate the traditions where you don't use anything electronic. So you had to actually hold their keys and they would use the stairs, they wouldn't use the elevator, and then you would have to open the door for them. They wouldn't use anything electronic. And I was so impressed they actually practice all of that on Friday. Jenny, you have a comment?
You probably want to mute St. Bernie because you're getting feedback. Yeah, so we're hearing you twice.
Go ahead.
I would say that, that famous rant that was on West Wing about, religion and how, if you want to select out certain parts of your teachings and highlight those like being anti-gay or something like that, but yet you don't observe all the religious traditions, like, you don't wear, you wear mixed, outfits of mixed fabrics, and you eat shellfish and blah, blah, blah. And it's just funny how all of a sudden some of these people have become hyper religious. And, oh, that's the devil's vaccine, and and all this. I'm like, where did this come from? And it really reminds me of when my kids were young, and they would have a day where they didn't want to go to school, and they would say, "Well, my toes hurt, my head hurts, my whatever hurts," and they're just running down a litany of excuses to do something they know they should do. And they sound like children. They sound like unhinged, uncontrollable, spoiled children that have gotten used to doing stuff like this throughout our history. And now there's just enough adults in this country that are progressive and say, no, we're not going to do this anymore. And conservatives really, we're not going to do this anymore, boo-boo. We love you. But it's time for tough love, and it's really, I think that's where Daddy Biden is coming from when he's doing these vaccine mandates. Is going, I've tried to bribe you, I've tried to encourage you, I've tried to do everything else, and now it's time for your timeout. And now it's time, if you don't get the vaccine and you work for a federal employer or a federal contractor, you're fired. And it's reverberating and with the military too. And now I literally heard this on Fox News last night, and this is one of their new talking points, is now it's the liberals' fault.
Yeah.
Because we're using reverse psychology to make the conservatives not want to take the vaccine because we've pushed so hard, and we tricked them into the mentality of trying to own the libs. So it's like a double blind, double dot, top secret trick that we did on them, like some kind of Jedi mind trick. And so now conservatives not taking the vaccine, it's now our fault. So I'm sorry for all the liberals on the show and watching the show. It's your fault that the conservatives aren't taking the vaccine.
I was gonna piggyback on what you said. The sense that I get, and we talked about this last week and the week before, just to let you know, we've had 22,000 viewers over the last 28 days. And of course, the top show was the chocolate show. Then the religion dumbing down is really helping us out as well. But one of the things that I've noticed is, like with children, you're talking about the ratty kid. Once you stop paying attention to them, they start, you're not paying attention to them anymore. I get the sense that those of us who are vaccinated and are practicing safety for our family, our tolerance has stopped for those who are unvaccinated. And I've noticed when we stop talking about them, they start quietly, oh, they're not paid attention to anymore. So I don't know, do you guys think maybe that's the solution, is just ignore them? Dr. B, you've got kids, I don't know, Barb.
In my own family, Art and I are going to the Chicago Marathon. I haven't seen my family since 2018. I want to see them. And we're going to have a dinner Thursday night. Well, I have 2 nephews that aren't vaccinated, and I didn't call them. I didn't text them, and they found out about it. And one of them is really mad and is not coming. And I'm like, I don't care. Then the other one went and got vaccinated. So
Hey.
you know what?
That's-
1 out of 2 ain't bad.
That's
I'm gonna say
wonderful.
50% success rate. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's better than American.
And he's a dad. But his
Oh.
sons are in high school. They went and got vaccinated because their mother said they could.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my God.
Well,
I don't
well,
want to
Dr. B,
deal
I know.
with that. I want to, when I go home, I just want to have some fun and see my family. I said, we are not talking politics, or I'm the oldest, I will beat you. So.
Well, Dr. B, I know you took a pledge when you became a physician to always care about people. But do you have to honor that? I mean, can you just? Sorry.
Well,
that's a double-edged sword question there.
It's not. I don't believe it's legally binding.
Okay. All right. Well.
Yeah. So
Jenny,
and obviously there's a bunch of crazy doctors, but that's just a personal commitment type of thing. It's
okay.
It's not a
Well,
sworn
Jenny,
on Bible.
I mean, have you given up on? I mean, I don't know. What do you?
Well, I mean,
2021.
As far as giving up on people that are spreading misinformation that were, and I do say were, in my personal circles, I'm either not having conversations with them, or on the social media I block them, because I think we have 2 types of anti-vax conspiracy nuts. We have the ones that are just quietly going about their day and trying to sneak around and not talk about it, and then you have the really loud minority of people that are going out of their way and doing protests and trying to encourage others and going on talk shows, for the talk show hosts that are left.
Yeah.
It's spreading massive disinformation, and you have to distinguish the difference. The people that are purposely spreading disinformation, such as Fox News, are the ones that are killing people, because I can point to 2 personal contacts of mine that in the last few weeks I've convinced them to actually go get the vaccine, and they actually did it. And it was really, they were basing their understanding of the vaccine on YouTube videos and TikTok and things of that nature. And I when I was talking to them via text, definitely not in person, I just said, I understand that. I understand fear, because fear can be irrational. You don't have to have logic to it. It's an emotional reaction. I totally understand this. Here's the thing. I'm not an expert either. I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be a medical professional. I don't even have a college degree. But I go to the people that have those initials behind their name, that say that that are a pharmacist or they are a doctor, and they're the ones that can inform me on should I take the vaccine. And,
So you have a common sense degree.
So yeah, I have, and so it's 25 years of marketing and sales that I'm leaning on, and I'm going, don't listen to me, but don't listen to them. Go to a pharmacy of your choosing. You can pick it. Go up into the consultation window and go, I've got some concerns and fears. Can I talk to you about the vaccine? And every pharmacist in the world, I mean, this is their geek out moment. They get to talk about the vaccines and medications. This is what they went to school for and spent dedicate their lives to. And I encourage people listening to the show that have the vaccine has its hesitancy for maybe valid or invalid reasons. It doesn't matter. You have them. You're at this point. Do yourself a favor And there's pharmacies all over the place. You can call them on the phone, you can go in person and just say, here's my questions, answer them for me, and help me make informed, not disinformed, but informed decisions on a vaccine. Don't listen to TikTok and YouTube doctors, fake doctors, group experts. Go to a real pharmacist that is an expert on medications, including vaccines, and get educated on it before you make a fatal decision.
That's a good point, Jenny. And you've been so consistent since this started. I mean, I know Mama Ruth and I, we joked about the coronavirus when it first started, and then we started taking it seriously when we realized it wasn't a joke. And you've been very consistent from the beginning. Dr. B, I don't know if I asked you the question. Do you feel the difference between 2020 and 2021? I mean, I know there's a lot of data. I mean, how do you feel?
No, it's not even data driven. And I was thinking about this during the show so far. You know, last year, my wife and I were holed up in our apartment in Charlotte. We were afraid to go anywhere but the grocery store. That was it. We didn't go to restaurants. We didn't do anything. Well, so now we're vaccinated. And, you know, the community out here in Western Colorado, I think, is a little better protected than maybe the average in the country. We're still wearing masks to go to the grocery store and places like that. But we can now go to restaurants. They're all kind of open. Now, most of them are outdoor seating. And so, you know, we're using some common sense. We actually went to a movie a few weeks ago. Now, we were 2 of 5 people in that particular evening showing. So it's like, hey, you know, we felt pretty safe. But, you know, we had our masks on. And so we who have been vaccinated, I think, have a certain degree of freedom, which is a big conservative talking point, and liberty to go out and enjoy life. We in Western Colorado here, we're near Aspen, that has this music festival. So they had the festival in this big giant kind of open air tent, but it's very interesting. They had a vaccinated section where people were closer together, and an unvaccinated section where like only every 3 rows, you know, were kind of open to people. So it's, you know, if you were sitting in the unvaccinated section, you were either an outlier or you were being, you know, unusually careful or something. I don't know what. But I think the big difference is that with the protection of the vaccine, there's a bit more return to life as normal. But then balancing that is the frustration and irritation with all those folks that we've been discussing, who for all these myriad reasons have yet to join the rest of us and solve this problem.
And I think that's extremely important. What you just pointed out, Dr. B, is for us that are vaccinated, we now have a tool in place that protects us. And you see a city like New York City, for example, that has extraordinarily high vaccine percentages. I think it's up in the 80s, approaching 90%. And they've been able to open up Broadway. They've been able to open up restaurants. They've been able to, I have several performer friends that live in New York City that are going back to live shows and indoor shows. And they're going back to some sort of, you know, quote unquote normalcy or typical daily things that we're able to go to movie theaters and concerts and all this. And where I think it's so bizarre that there's such a disconnect on the anti-vax crowd, that they don't see this. They don't see us being able to have a passport to some sort of pre-COVID existence, and that they are actually opting themselves out of society, and they're alienating themselves by opting out of the vaccine. They're opting out of some sort of normalcy over something that just stays in your body a couple of days.
So you know what, Jenny?
It's normal.
Jenny, I got a question for you. So we only got about 9 minutes left. So let's make it brief if we can. But Barbara raised a very, very good question. What Barbara had said was that that is the alarm. Barbara raised a very good question about she felt like the Democrats are, you know, it feels disorganized, or that was kind of the word you said, Barbara. But I'm curious if those of us who are vaccinated, kind of what I was, and Dr. B may have shared as well, I feel more secure, I feel more empowered, I have more freedom. those who aren't vaccinated or those who maybe, those are probably never going to vote for a Democrat in the 2022 election. Probably are that's a different. So I wonder politically, and I don't want to talk too much about politics, but like 30 seconds or less, do you think there's, what do you think, Jenny or Barbara as well? Do you think that they represent enough to change things in 2022, or do you think they're just really loud?
Okay. I live amongst Republicans, and I feel I'm ostracized because I don't want to do things with them because some of them are not vaccinated. I don't have the gatherings I used to have. So that's my whole thing about, to me personally, 2021 is worse because everybody wore a mask. Nobody really, we really didn't do that much because of the virus, but we were friends, and I don't feel that way now. and trying to not go through it with my family, but this whole discourse with the Democratic Party, they don't get it. If they don't get it together, we're going to have Republicans again in 2022, and I want to smack them. But I feel happy that Biden's in power. Sorry that so many things are going wrong, but hopefully he can fix it and persevere. But they got to get their heads out of their butts and realize where we are in this country right now, because we're in trouble for 2022 if we keep going the way we're going. And that's why I've kind of tuned out of politics, because I don't want to have anything to do with it.
But that's a very good point.
Do anything about it.
And that's an excellent point. So Jenny, very quickly, I mean, does that,
as far as political concerns, I actually completely disagree with Barbara on this. We just saw in California a epic win over stupidity. The fact that Governor Newsom beat the recall election by a higher percentage than what he won by over 2 years ago. He won by 63%, despite disinformation and all the kookiness. So I do believe that Democrats are on track. I think there's so much disinformation and so much disillusion being sown by conservatives and Republicans, because it's the only issues the Republicans can run on are wedge issues. And they are anti-healthcare, they're anti-life, they're anti-COVID vaccine, they're anti anything that's a sense of normalcy. Even though they say they back the blue, the number one cause of death for police officers this year is COVID. So let's let that sink in for a moment. The reality is that every special election we've had this year, Democrats are primarily winning. And so we're ahead in the polling, we're ahead in everywhere else. Biden has kept the majority of his campaign promises. And this is why they're pushing back so hard, because Biden is on the right side of history. Every time a big bill comes down the pike, we look at the spending bill for the child tax care credit that lifted immediately 25% of poverty-stricken families and poverty-stricken children out of poverty instantly. We're seeing things that we've never seen passed in almost 100 years by Biden. And so I believe you're going to see, and I'll also use case in point where you're sitting right now, Christian, in Texas. Abbott's approval ratings, and he's behind the two proposed major Democratic candidates. DeSantis the same way, the major poll voting getting Democrat that's talking about running in Florida. DeSantis is 8 percentage points behind this guy. Even if you had a margin of error of 3 to 5%, you're talking about they were talking about DeSantis in presidential terms for 2024, but he might not be the governor at the end of 2022. And so you're seeing
we only got 4 minutes. So I mean, I hear what Barbara's saying, because I think that is the talking point, the talk where we live in South Charlotte. But I also hear, like, just here in Texas, even people here in Texas are upset at Abbott. and are upset. So I guess the big question is,
and let's clarify and these are people that are conservatives that typically vote for Republicans. So there's the difference is that conservatives are frustrated with their own deals. You're even seeing Trump getting booed every time he talks about the vaccine at his fundraising pep rallies that he has. So we have to make a very clear point that I believe the party that's in disarray is the Republican Party.
Yeah, because
but in Republican or more conservative circles, like where Barbara lives, is a very conservative part of Charlotte that's very Republican dominated. Republicans are going to try to spin it as the Democrats are blowing up. And I do believe that they need to sell that. They need to put their best foot forward to convince themselves or whip themselves up into some side of frenzy. But in reality, even Fox News is saying the Republicans are in trouble. Many times they're stating that.
Today, Biden and Pelosi and the House are getting together in his office trying to make sure that the infrastructure bill gets passed and this reconciliation bill gets settled. They're voting on the 27th, and everybody's saying it's not going to happen unless Pelosi and Biden can find the secret sauce. That's scary. What is the matter with them? Why are they even? And they're blaming it on what's his name?
Manchin.
It's
Manchin.
not.
But
it's a
you know
mess,
what?
right?
No, I agree with you, and I know we got to close up here, but I completely agree, and I know where Jenny's coming from in her thinking process. You know, elect 2022.
I hope she's right. I wish
she's usually right, even though we don't always agree. She's usually end up right. But I'll say this: the 2020 election is a year away. It's a long way away, even though it doesn't seem like that far away. At the end of the day, and this is where Trump made a mistake, I think. When 2021 comes around, we can all disagree with things that maybe Biden did with Afghanistan or even, the anti-vaxxers. If the decision's going to be made in private, do we want Biden to continue or do we want the Trump nutness to come back? I just think that like rational people, they may not like some of the things going on, but they're going to go, yeah, but I sure don't want that chaos every day of the Trump situation. So,
and I think we already saw it in California. I literally think, because here's a reality, and I've seen several scientific models of how many deaths we're going to have between this summer and next summer. And there's no estimate that puts it less than 1 million people are going to die in the next, from August to next July. And I truly believe there's going to be at least 1 million die, probably more, between collateral deaths and COVID deaths. And I think the horror of that in a vaccine era, where we have a vaccine that's proven to almost virtually eliminate death by COVID and hospitalization by COVID, if that doesn't motivate people, I don't know what will. And I truly believe the horror of seeing another 1 million people dead is going to propel Democrats into victory. I believe that people are going to go, this is 100%. We got to lay this on Republicans. So they're not, Fox News can spin it any way they want to, that somehow we've, tricked conservatives into not wanting to take this. But I think we've seen Newsom show the pathway in which Democrats, if they put their head down and just steamroll through and stay the course, that we're going to weather, because we're going to get pushed back. Republicans are going to spin this anyway. Like we're going to see the spin machine go into full force because we know they're coming into midterms. So we just got to realize that, first of all, Biden's done a phenomenal job of getting historic things passed. I do believe the infrastructure bill will pass. But of course, in a democracy, and this is one thing I'd like to point out real quick, and then I'm going to shut up, is we do have to have that as a debate. So the debates that are going on today between we, as a party, we should be questioning our policy. That is part of democracy, is reconciliation and all that. So this is not an unusual process, because we are talking about $3.5 trillion over 10 years. This is not chump change.
So we want them to be talking about it.
And they should be fine tuning. As part of democracy, we should be taking the Republicans' input. We should be doing that. And as it goes to committee in the Senate and it's debated, part of democracy, whether we like it or not. We aren't a communist country. We aren't a dictator per se. This is part of the process. Now, Republicans are doing a good job of spinning that it's a mess, but truthfully, this happens on every major bill. Like this is nothing new.
Okay.
This happened under Reagan and Bush's and all that people. So,
all right, Jen, excellent points. I was going to ask Dr. B this question, but he's going to have to answer it when he closes his section. When he tells us where he's going to be. But one of the things I noticed, and I had written this down, I have not heard in 2021 that I did in 2020, so that is a positive. I've not heard a lot about natural herd immunity as much. So I don't know if, I mean, you remember all the herd immunity people that said, I want to get this herd? They're still there, but they're not bragging about it anymore because they're dying off. But I noticed, so that's one good thing. I was trying to leave on a positive note, not that they're dying off, but so thank you for joining us, and I appreciate your time. We value those of us who are going to watch us later on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you so much. Next week is the show we've been excited to have. It's called, Is Medicare Advantage a Scam? Last year, we talked about what Medicare Advantage is, and this year, we want to compare Medicare Advantage. Those commercials started in August. They're on all the time on MeTV.
They never stop.
It is like constant.
Mute button, mute button. Yeah.
Jimmy JJ Walker, and Medicare Advantage is dynamite.
Dynamite.
So that's going to be next week.
It is dynamite. It's blowing up our healthcare system.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll have, I hope, Dr. B back on with us next week, and we'll be talking. We'll actually compare and maybe educate people as well, because people will be starting rolling for 2022 if you haven't already. So let's go around the Brady Event screen. Tell us where you're going to be in 30 seconds or less, and we will start with, looks like Dr. B, Jenny, and then Barbara. Go ahead.
Well, this afternoon, remotely from here in Colorado, Jessica Sachs, the chair of Healthcare Justice North Carolina, and I will be speaking to the student kind of Medicare for All chapter at Duke University about racial inequities of the pandemic and about how Medicare for All might have solved those. So that's what I'm going to be up to. Next.
I'm going to be doing more of the same. I'll be working a little bit and working on some of my projects. I don't have any big events. I got my birthday out of the way, and so I've got a lot to do between now and October 1st. But the reality is get vaccinated, peeps. If you're not vaccinated now, go get your questions answered. And any pharmacist in the world will talk to you. And I can't say this enough. Get educated. Don't go by opinion, including mine. Don't even, the only thing I ask that you listen to me is talk to an actual expert, and don't rely on the information on YouTube.
I'm going to be in South Charlotte. I got a couple of foundation things I'm going to be working on, and then I do my Thursday in Winston-Salem, and they just aerated my lawn, Christian. So guess what else? Lawn work, yay! So thank God for the rain, though. Yes, thank God.
Yeah. Well, I am in Texas for a couple of weeks, and I will be. It's been 3 years since I've been here, and I can tell you I miss my family, but I don't miss Texas. That should be the new slogan instead of "Don't mess with Texas." I don't miss Texas, but I do miss my family. It is wonderful to be around my family. And as I do, since I'm in a high infection, even though I'm vaccinated, I'll be wearing a mask around as many people as I can, even those family members who are unvaccinated, and getting the test periodically to make sure what I'm doing is safe. So with that said, we will see you. This is my, I may try to hit a TCU football game if I can, although that is not my priority. So that's why I was wearing that mask. So with that said, I want to thank everyone for joining us on Coffee and Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cano. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Dr. B, of course, from Colorado. It looks like, I don't know if y'all heard what he said. It looks like they've captured him for a while. He may not be coming back till... we'll see what happens. So stay on Zoom and we can make a brief promo. And once again, thank you for calling. Thank you for joining us on Coffee and Pan Dulce. Bye, y'all.